everyone, today we are making a prawn baked rice. So this is a bit of a take on the paella, and that is because I don't have a paella pan, and it's just much easier in the oven, and I was also able to find fresh prawns in the market yesterday. What I have got and what I like using for this is basically a roasting pan, only because it sort of saves me, with this I can just cook everything in the pan first and then pop that into the oven. It just saves me from basically having to sort of cook it in a pot first and then transferring it on into a baking tray or a casserole dish. But of course, if you don't have one, then it's just as easy to do, but it just saves the washing up. It is also a really good recipe for indoor cooking or outdoor cooking. So if you're doing like a barbecue and wanting a bit of like surf and turf, so really good to add that on. Again, as mentioned, it's really easy because the prep time is only less than 10 minutes and the cooking time itself is less than 25 minutes. What I've got here is basically what I'm going to be preparing is for about a serving of 8. And obviously, if you've got more people over for a barbecue, if you're doubling it, you can always, because the baking time itself is only 10 minutes, then you can always cook it in one large pot in one batch and then sort of separating it into a couple of small batches into the oven if you've got like a small oven, I think. So in terms of the ingredients, again, this is for a serving of 8. I have got from the market yesterday really fresh green prawns. I've got about 1 kilo of these. And this is roughly about 12 to 13 prawns generally. They're about the size of the length of my palm. I've also got 2 sort of small bunch of broccolini. Generally 1 bunch is enough, but because these were really fresh and we've got a bit of carb in the, refined carb in terms of the rice. In this recipe, I thought the more vegetables the better, so 2 bunches. You can use 1 bunch if you want. I've got about 100 grams of chopped kale, green kale. Now this is basically towards the end that I'll stir it in to add a bit of texture to it. I've also got 1 red capsicum, and you can use green capsicum if you want, but I find that because we're using paprika powder as well, the red capsicum will, it has got that natural sweetness, and it will also sort of bring out the flavour of the paprika better. I've got 3 jalapeno peppers, and they're about medium size. These are the non-spicy one, and it's literally, I'll be slicing it finely, adding it in there for flavour. I'm not going to be using chili this time, but I am going to be using a green chili, and that is basically to add in a little bit of kick, but it's got also that brightness to the green chili over the red. I've also got 4 cloves of garlic and 2 shallots and 1 red onion. Generally, I will actually leave out the red onion and use 4 shallots instead, but because I'm sort of using a medium-sized onion, I've taken out the 2 shallots, and that is more for health benefits, of course. For with onions, the health benefits are immense, and also for the immunity as well. Now I've got some parsley here, continental parsley, to sort of add in as a bit of a garnish towards the end. We're not using any salt today because, again, my favourite ingredient, I'm going to be adding in 1 sliced chorizo. So I don't know if you watched the last the mussels recipe video and saw the recipe there. Adding in the chorizo will give it that saltiness, so that we don't need to add in the additional salt. In the mussels recipe that I did, I went to the butcher's to get the fresh chorizo. So again, because it's fresh, it's and not cured, that salt content wasn't really there. So this is the one that I usually use, and it's sort of semi-cured and vacuum sealed, and this one has got that salt content in there, enough so that you don't need to add in the additional salt. So 1 of that slice. I've also got obviously olive oil. I'm going to be using about 1 cup of dry white wine towards the end, and I've got, now this is for the rice. So with the rice, I'm using 500 grams of rice, white rice, and it's a medium grain. I've not really tried it with long grain, only because it's a lot easier to cook, but with the medium grain, the texture is there. If you're using brown rice, that's also doable. It's just you will need to almost for every for every cup of rice or for every 100 grams, you've got to almost do an extra third of water. So what I've got is 500 grams of medium grain white rice, and I will be adding in a litre of chicken stock. With chicken stock, you can use the Campbell ones in the carton, or you can use the little cube ones and dilute it with the litre of water. What I've used is, again, I trust the chicken bone broth for immune health, and diluting that in a litre of water. I always tend to also keep about a cup of water on the side as I'm cooking, just because sometimes with extra ingredients you don't know how it's going to absorb, so and you just have to keep gauging as you cook. I'm going to be using 2 tablespoons of red paprika powder as well, so that's going to go in with the rice. And what I've got here, fresh lemons actually. So a friend of ours, she's got this magnificent lemon tree, and it sort of produces heaps and heaps of lemons, super fresh. And also the skin, because it's organic as well, the skin is like really, really thin. It's almost like a lime, and it's as soon as you cut into it, you can smell it. So the lemon in there is basically, we'll be using the juice of the lemon, 1 lemon, as we put it into the oven to cook. And then I'm going to be cutting some fresh slices of lemon just to serve on the side. Again, as you bring it out and as you're serving it, giving that extra bit of brightness to it. So I guess let's get started. Okay, so we're going to start cooking now. What I've done is I have preheated my oven to 220 degrees Celsius, and that's on a fan force program as well. Over low to medium heat, I have got 2 tablespoons of olive oil in my roasting pan, and I'm going to let that come to a sizzle, and then I'll add in my garlic and my shallots and onion and saute that through. You don't actually need to add too much olive oil. It's actually just enough to cover the base of the pan or the pot that you're using, so that the garlic and the shallots and onion don't stick to the bottom. What I'll then do, once that sort of softens, is basically add in the cut chorizo and cook that through. Basically stirring it through so it's semi-cooked and it sort of seals in that little bit of juice. And then after that is when I will quickly add in, and we're going to be working fairly quickly. So that's after the chorizo, I'd say about a minute or so. That's when I'll add in the capsicum or the bell peppers, and also jalapenos and chili at the same time. You don't need to cook it thoroughly because we're still going to pop that into the oven. So once the capsicum's been stirred through for a couple of seconds, that's when I'll add in the washed rice into the pan and stir that through before I add in the stock and the liquid. Now basically we're adding in the rice, stirring it through for about 5 minutes, just so that the rice itself, while it's still in the grain form and raw, it's going to be absorbing all that beautiful flavour with the olive oil that's been already infused with your garlic, your onions, your shallots, your capsicum, your chorizo as well. And then once we stir that through for about 5 minutes, that's when I'll add in the 2 tablespoons of paprika powder as well, to then coat the rice with that flavour and the colour. And then once we stir that through for about 5 minutes, that's when I'll add in the 2 tablespoons of paprika powder as well, to then coat the rice with that flavour and the colour. So the rice has gone in without the water yet, and we have evenly coated it through with the paprika powder as well, and the grains have nicely absorbed all the beautiful sort of infused oil in there from the chorizo, from all the flavours. And look at the colour of the dish. It's just so bright and so colourful. It actually makes me happy cooking this dish. What we're going to do is gradually stir in the chicken stock. so that the rice itself actually starts to cook. Now make sure when you gradually stir it through, you're also stirring through that rice so it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan as well. Now, once we start baking the rice, that's when you'll get the crispiness of the baked rice around the sides. Cooking time for this part of the process is about 10 to 15 minutes, and we're turning the heat up a little bit more, so it's going to be medium to high heat as the rice starts to cook through. As always, what we're going to do is it's only towards the very end when the rice is mostly cooked through. That's when I'm going to, and before I put into the oven, and that's when I'm going to be adding in that cup of wine, because when it goes into the oven, the cup of wine, that's when all the flavors come out as well, and all the sweetness from the wine and the prawn, that gets all infused together, so that we don't sort of lose that flavour of that dry white wine too early. Basically, after 5 minutes, it's now really looking like the rice is almost done. Because we're going to pop it into the oven, the thing is you need to let it cook through first, because the oven is only there to sort of cook up that prawn and give it that baked rice crisp around the edges, and also the broccolini as well. So now that that's almost done, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to stir in and sort of bury the broccolini in there. The sort of stove is still hot, but I'm adding the broccolini to burn in there. And then after I stir that through, I'll add in the kale as well for that crunch. Now what we're going to do is place all the prawns on top and then pop that into the oven. When I place the prawns on top, it's going to just sort of go head toes, so that it fits all of it. And then I'm also going to squeeze in some lemon juice right before I pop it into the oven for that, again, extra bit of brightness in taste, and then cut a separate lemon for serving with. So the prawns have been all placed on top now and ready to go into the oven. I sliced up a lemon in half so that there's half of it on each side, and that's purely for, to add in that extra brightness visually as well. And what I'm going to do is then squeeze in a whole lemon over the top before we pop that into the oven, so that the juice itself brings out the brightness of it in taste as well. And again, what I'll do is I'll cut up some lemons into wedges, so that it can be served with the dish when we bring it up. And have a look at the colour, it's just amazing. Guys, it is all done, 10 minutes in the oven, and it's out. It's nicely cooked. The prawns are all nice and pink on the top, so again, seafood doesn't need that much time at all. And once it turns pink, it is bang on at 10 minutes. I'm serving it with a glass of dry white wine and also some cut lemon wedges to squeeze on top. I've also cut up the parsley to garnish, so it's nice and green, but look at the colours on this, it looks amazing.